Hello, this is Sean. Welcome to another lesson. Today I'm going to talk about introductions, how to form them on two levels. Basic levels, how to get your first introductions together, and those of you who are more advanced will use the Barry Harris movement method to create more movement and interest in your introductions as well. Please do hit like on this video. It's really helping us to grow and spread the word so I can do more of this for you. And if you're new here, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload new content. And with that, let's get into it. So there comes a time in every jazz piano player's life when somebody says those words, often on stage for the first time. Would you play me a 4-bar introduction, please, or an 8-bar introduction? And newer players are going to freeze, and sometimes more experienced players aren't sure how to put them together well either. So we'll do this on two levels. We'll look at how to build some really simple introductions that are really effective, and then we'll look at the Barry Harris method of movement on those for more advanced players as well. Now, I did some basic calculations once that showed me that about 70% of tunes begin on chord 1, the tonic chord in a key. About 20% began on chord 2. I'm talking about jazz standards here, okay? And that last 10% began on something else, often 4 or 6. But that means that if we're prepared to play introductions for tunes that begin on a 1 and a 2, then we're prepared for most situations anyway. And don't forget, if you're ever lost and a tune begins on something else, take the last 8 bars of the tune or last 4 bars of the tune, and that will get you there too. But this one will be about what do we do when a tune begins on chord 1. You know, the easiest thing to do is start to think about your typical 1-6-2-5 progressions. So 1-6-2-5, simple stuff. I've got a whole lesson on this with some variations too, which are useful for introductions. I'll link it in the description. 1 in C, C major 7 or C6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gives you A minor 7th. 1, 2 is D minor 7th. 3, 4, 5, G7. Okay, so get really good at knowing that in several keys to start with. Now, the kinds of things we'll do is when I play a 1 chord, normally move the 1 up to 2 in the right hand. I've also got lessons on why that is as well. There's a few things to link in the description below, which I'll do. So 1 to the nearest 6, right? Simple. 2, 5. Now this is where some of those myths about jazz piano that you always play the chord in the left hand and the melody in the right hand, they immediately fall apart because you need to play shells as well in the left hand. There are times when that is true, when you're improvising or when you're playing particular tunes, but the thing that seems to be forgotten is chords in the right hand and shells in the left hand, right? That's really important. So anyway, there's our 1 chord. We want to look for the nearest 6, which could be here, or it could have been, so there's A minor 7. So inversions are so important. And this is why when newer students don't pay attention to inversions and think it's something that they're taught in a piano lesson just to pass an exam and then forget all about them, this is where it starts to fall apart, right? So this is our C major 7th voicing, which, by the way, if you invert it enough, you'll see that it's G6. I know a lot of newer players struggle with that and they want to see it as an E minor 7. But in the Barry Harris moves, they're really handy to know as G major 6 chords. And as a Barry Harris student, that's how I think of them. So the nearest A minor 7th, which is the same as a C6, by the way. So if you know these things when you're learning your inversions, you're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, make your life a lot easier. And then D minor 7th to G7, right? So I would practice doing things like getting those inversions with nothing else happening first of all. Fine, nothing wrong with that. If you're a new player and you're playing with a bass player and a band, okay, you can get away with doing that. Then if you want to take things to the next level, start using the inversions as creative mechanisms. So for example, that C major 7th voicing, which I said is a G6, inverted, right? 1, 3, 5, 6. And to be clear, this is a lesson, really. We're talking level 2 to level 3. I teach on 3 levels. Level 1 is figuring out what the chords are and playing your first few tunes. Level 2 is trying to get past that, getting more voicings and things in your playing. Beginnings of improvisation, getting right hand melodies on top of chord shapes. Level 3, more advanced movements, improv, etc. So using the inversions creatively, I'll take those G6s and make sure I can join each one of those to an A minor 7th. which incidentally is the same as a C6. So here's a C6 or an A minor 7th. Okay, let's go from here. Why are these the nearest ones? Because look, if that's my C major 7th, see that root has been moved up a whole step and it's the same as G6, 1, 3, 5, 6. Then these bottom two notes are the same in both chords, so they don't need to change, right? Then it'll always be the B and the D that move, and then the B and the D move, right? So when you do stuff like that, an introduction can automatically become more interesting because you can just fill in time with an inversion. So you do stuff like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. What happened? C major 7th, voicing, inverted before joining to an A minor 7th, right? Now let's do a similar thing on D minor 7. Alright, what was going on there? D minor 7th, D minor 7th, and then G7. I think I went to one of these, which is a voicing. We often move that G up a half step like this. And then you could invert that. Do you notice what you get in the right hand, newer players? That's a diminished. I have a lesson on why we play the diminished on top of a dominant. I'll link that as well. You're going to have some stuff to do. So look what happens if I start putting those things together and start to create introductions. And by the way, it doesn't have to be those inversions. It can be any inversions. Okay, stuff like that. We could vary the 1625, so we could play some substitutions or variations on 1625, another thing that's linked below because it's part of one of the other lessons. So this time I'll take a 3 because 1 and 3 are about the same. In fact, if you look at that first C major 7th voicing I played where the 1 moves, let's do this, where the 1 moves to 2, it's the same as the 3, isn't it? E minor 7th, right? So let's take 3, 6, but the 6 will be dominant this time. A7. And do you remember I said sometimes we move that A up a half step on a dominant, we take the root up a half step to get this diminished chord. And then the 2 and the 5 will be the same way they were. So, recap, we've got E minor 7th, A7. But the A7 will have the A moved up a half step in the right hand. Then D minor 7, G7. With the G moved up a half step in the right hand. You start to play with inversions and things on that. This is the kind of thing you can get. Great, you've got an introduction already. No problem. I wouldn't say no problem, you've got to work on them, but they're not that hard, right? Maybe this time I'll put the A7 in the 1625 right at the beginning. See that? D minor 7, single note, if I do it without a pedal, and then invert. I'm trying to keep my voicings on that level 2 that I teach, not the craziness, okay? All right, let's move on to a few Barry Harris moves on that. So, let's take the 1, and then let's move the minor 7th chords today. So, when we get A minor 7th, it's the same as C6. And again, I won't go right from the beginning of that concept in too much depth because again, I'll link what's related below if you need to go and study it. So A minor 7 is C6. So we use the C major 6 and D diminished intertwined to make a scale of chords. So we get C6, D diminished, C6, D diminished, inverted all the way up. A diminished chord, C6, D diminished, etc. Okay? And let's do something with that. So we've got C major 7, I'll do nothing to it except an inversion. maybe. Yeah, let's have one of those. So this is an A minor 7th, or a C6, as you can see, with the top 2 notes only moved up to those diminished notes. So there's my C6, D diminished notes. These 2 notes are the ones I'm going to use. So that mix of major 6 notes and diminished notes can be particularly pretty. You can see the kind of thing that comes out of it, right? Then if you start to do the same thing on the D minor 7th, you just invert minor 7ths up once and you get the corresponding major 6s, right? So F major 6 is the same as D minor 7th. All these relationships become clear once you start looking at this kind of method for a while. So what we do with F6, the same thing. We put a diminished on the 2nd degree of the scale, and that gives us obviously G diminished, and then F6 inverted, G diminished, inverted, etc. F6, this is the one people often get wrong. This inversion of G diminished, F6, G diminished, and F6. So let's see if we can have something on that. F major 6 diminished for D minor 7th. Let's see. Yeah, why not? So we've got the F6, same shape we had for the C6 or A minor 7th. We've got for the F6 or D minor 7th, which has the same notes. Top 2 notes moved up to diminished notes. Fine. And then to one of our G7s with its diminished on the top, right? Okay, let's put some stuff together so you can hear some examples of how that would sound. Here's a trick. So D minor 7th, move a note up with the diminished chord that goes with G7, move a note down to bring it up. Then we're going to take a 3 to 6 dominant. See those 2 notes again from the F major 6 diminished? So our movements came from C6 on the A minor 7th, F6 on the D minor 7th. I'll play a couple of ideas like that with a bit more freedom so I'm not teaching at the same time, and hopefully you'll start to see what's going on. Something like that. So hopefully you got something out of that. I know I had to go a bit fast to fit everything in, but just to give you an idea of just getting introductions down with inversions, a couple of 1-6-2-5 variations, and then starting to incorporate inversions, movements, moving top 2, just moving a note down and up, that kind of thing. If you enjoy that, then perhaps you'll consider joining me on Jazz Skills, where we have lots of lessons from developing fluency, learning your first chords and progressions, to putting those into tunes and adding your melodies, voicings, movements, improvisation, all that kind of thing, and much more. Help from me and a vibrant community too. So maybe see you there, and thanks again for watching. Bye for now.